Have you found ammunition to be too costly? Have you wished that you could get better performance out of the ammunition that you have? Do you wish that maybe you had a skill or a hobby that was pretty different from a lot of others? Well, stick around. Today we'll get into why reloading just might be that new skill for you. Welcome back, folks. Today I want to talk about some of the reasons that I reload, what got me into it, and where I went after I started. Now, I want to talk to y'all about where I started in hand loading, and that is over a decade ago. I got into hand loading because I had a 22-250 Remington, and it was a great rifle. The rifle itself was a Savage Axis. It was one of the original Generation 1 rifles, and for what it was a very accurate rifle right out of the box. But I had two big problems. The first problem was ammunition was very, very expensive for the 22-250. It still is today, but at the time I was a young teenager and I didn't have a ton of money, but I wanted to shoot my rifle. I wanted to shoot something more than a 22 long rifle. So I had to find a way to knock that cost down. And the second reason is I wanted to get better performance. In my area locally, because at the time I wasn't really big on ordering ammunition online, I pretty much got what I could get locally. There weren't a ton of options, and the options that were there weren't always the best. You typically got maybe 3 or 4 varieties of hunting ammunition at your local store, and that was about it. You know, maybe if you took that occasional trip to a Cabela's, you got 5 or 6 options, but you still didn't get a ton, and they were still $25 to $35 a box. So I wanted to get better performance and cheaper ammunition, but I didn't want cheaper at the sacrifice of quality. And a family member of mine was a hand loader for years and still does hand load. And he gave me some equipment and he got me into it, and he gave me manuals and he said, this is what you need to do. And I had watched him hand load for years, so it was nothing new to me. So I took the equipment, I went home and I got started up and I started making ammunition for that 22-250. And after some time went on, I got more confident. I got some new equipment. I got new manuals. I got all kinds of things that helped me improve over the years. And even to this day, I'm still buying new things that help me improve. You don't ever really find, or at least I haven't found it yet, you don't typically find a spot where you say, okay, I'm good, I don't need any more gear. You're always finding some kind of hole, or you want to try a new bullet or try a new powder or try a combination that you haven't used before, or you get a whole new rifle and cartridge and that starts the whole tunnel of hand loading all over again. So there's a lot of different things that keep you going in it. Now, cost of ammunition and quality of ammunition were the two big reasons that I started reloading, but it's not necessarily the only reasons that I reload today. One, and this may sound kind of nerdy, but it turned into one of my favorite hobbies. One of the places that I spend the most time in my life outside of work and sleeping is right here at this bench and at the bench next to it that's not on camera. And for those curious, those are some of the shotgun presses. A couple mechs are over there too. But I spend most of my time down here doing different hand loads, and I reload for rifles, pistols, shotguns, and it just turned into a huge hobby of mine, the actual process of making the ammo. Now, a lot of people hate the process and they buy gear to speed it up, and some people are like, I can't stand reloading on a single stage press, and that's fine. I don't expect everyone to love the process, but I do like it. It's just a very enjoyable process for me. Another reason that I like hand loading is it opens up a whole new area for bullets and powders and primers. Things that you had no control over before, now you can pick from an almost seemingly infinite list. When you go to the store, let's say you're shooting a 38 special. When you go to the store, at least in my area, the most common ammunition types are somewhere around 130 grain round nose bullets, 158 grain hollow points, and 158 grain semi-wad cutters. And that's about it. You don't get too much other option. And maybe in your area it's different. I'm just telling you what it's been like in my area, and it's been that way for at least 15 years. But when you start hand loading, you get a whole new spectrum. You don't just get a semi-wad cutter. You can get a Keith profile semi-wad cutter. You can get a tumble lube semi-wad cutter. You can get a bevel base semi-wad cutter. And bullet styles and designs that previously you had no idea existed, now it's been opened up to you. Now you're not limited to the one hollow point. You're not limited to just the Hornady XTP that comes in a lot of factory ammunition. That's not me dogging on the XTP. It's a great bullet. It's just a very common one. But now you've opened yourself up. Well, maybe you get a Sierra. Maybe you get a Nosler. You can go down these different paths and try even more bullets. And yes, I know some of those come in factory offerings. I'm just saying, in general, these things are not as common. So you get to experiment with them more. Another benefit of reloading is you get to use cast bullets, and you can either cast your own cast bullets or you can purchase pre-cast and pre-lubricated bullets. And pre-cast bullets are what I did for a long time, but here recently I'm getting into casting my own bullets. Now, I don't want to talk like I am the definitive authority on cast bullets because I am very new to this, and many of you watching probably know a lot more about bullet casting than I do, which if you're one of those people, feel free to help me out. Jump on down to the comments, give some of your favorite tips for myself and other new bullet casters or people looking at getting into it. But these cast bullets open you up to even more profiles. You get different bullet shapes. You can do different things with them. You can cast a hollow base wad cutter and you can use it for close range target practice. You can cast a very hard cast semi-wad cutter or wide flat nose design, and you can use it for hunting and defense against dangerous game. You can cast just a solid round nose, and that's good for target practice or small game hunting. There's a ton of different things that work into that open you up that you didn't have access to before. Not to mention the litany of bullet lubricants if you decide that's something that you want to try and go down in a rabbit hole you want to sort through. Now, we've already touched on cost, but I want to go back to this because it's not just the cost per round. It's what you're getting. And a disclaimer I want to make is, yes, I know up front this is not cost saving. When you want to save money in reloading, it's a long-term game. Now, the cheaper you keep everything up front, the quicker and the easier it'll be for you to save money. But if you go out and you want to duplicate this exact setup, I got some news for you. It'll take you a hot minute to start saving money. But once you get there, you save a ton. Now, one of the things that I reload the most for is 30-30. I have two 30-30 rifles that I use, a Winchester Model 94 and a Marlin 336. Love both those rifles, both of them chambered in 30-30. And 30-30 is, again, one of those common rifle cartridges that's not the cheapest thing to shoot, but you can reload for it and make it so much more cheaper, but you don't have to sacrifice your quality. So originally, shooting the 30-30, one of the most common loads that I would use was Remington green and yellow box, the core locked 150 or 170 grain soft point bullets. And those were great. They worked well, but they were 25, 30 bucks a box, maybe. I don't remember exactly what I was paying for them. I haven't paid for some in such a long time. Forgive me, you may be able to go out there and find them for a different cost, but I think that's what I was paying for them at the time. And keep in mind, I bought a 30-30 in the middle of the recent gun and ammo shortage that we had that lasted for about 4 or 5 years. So I didn't get the best price when I did all this. But now I can go back and kind of recreate that load. So one of the ways that I recreated it is I took some Starline 30-30 brass. I use either IMR 30-31 or Winchester 748 ball powder. I like both of those. I've found 2 different charges that work really well. And I don't have the info in front of me, so I'm not going to tell you the charge weights. But if you're curious on different loads that I use, head over to my website, Practical Marksmanship Reloaded. I do publish load data over there. So I take those two powders and I'll combine them with a Speer Hot Core 150 or 170. I've really kind of gravitated towards the 150. For me, I found that those work really well, even though there's absolutely nothing wrong with the 170 grain bullet. So I'm making a very comparable load to the load that I used to use from Remington or Winchester or Federal. I used them from a bunch of different people. It's just Remington was the one that came to mind first, but I've used a ton of them. But I've made an even better quality load that performs better, that gives equal performance, if not better performance on game, and is incredibly accurate for my lever action rifle. I mean, my rifles are old and beat up. My 336 is a waffle top from 1950. So the fact that that gun is still accurate, even though it's been beat over every hill and mountain you can find, I'm pretty happy with that. But it gives me a whole new ability to create even better quality ammunition. It's cheaper, and now that I'm getting into cast bullets, I can cast bullets for the 30-30 and make a practice load or a plinking load that is far cheaper than the hot core, the Speer load that I use, the hand load. So you can save a lot of money in a lot of different ways. You can get a whole new litany of options. You can get different velocities, more consistent velocities. You can play around with cartridge overall length. If you've got a gun that's kind of finicky about long cartridges, and there are some of those out there, you can work up a load that's got a shorter overall length, and that'll kind of get you where you need to be for your gun. You can do cast bullets, jacketed bullets. You can make your own bullets. And just about all those, you're going to save money while you're doing it. Now, you guys keep hearing me say, save money, save money, save money. Well, the more money you save, the more you get to do all this. So saving money is a huge aspect of reloading. It's not the only one, but it is a big one. The last benefit I want to hit on, and it's another thing with bullet selection, is it opens you up to companies who only make actual projectiles and they don't make loaded ammunition. So for now these are premium loads. These are very premium loads. These are not going to be your cheapest option, but if you're wanting top end performance, there are a lot of really good bullet manufacturers that just make the bullet, and to my knowledge, no one is actually loading the bullet in anything. It's only open just to hand loaders. And along that note, there's a ton of Wildcat cartridges that aren't standard production, but can be easily made, or cartridges that are typically very expensive can be made from a very popular cartridge. Now, if you're getting kind of lost in the weeds there, let me give you an example. The 30-06 is a very common cartridge. It's been around for forever. We all know about the 30-06. It needs no introduction. The 35 Whelen, most people have never heard of unless you're an older hunter. It was more popular back in the day, and now it's starting to come back up with Ruger's introduction of the Lipsey's Alaskan Bush Rifle, but we're still a long way from being mainstream here. The 35 Whelen, all it is a 30-06, what we call necked up. So the neck expanded out from a .308 diameter bullet to a .358 diameter bullet. So you can take a piece of spent 30-06 brass, which for me locally, I go to a local indoor range and I buy cheap once-fired brass, or I buy it from Starline. It depends on what I'm doing and where I'm getting it, but I can get 30-06 from them, so I do. And you just run it through a 35 Whelen sizing die, and instead of spending, I believe one box of 35 Whelen was about $40, you can reload it for 50 to 60 cents a round. And the reason I don't have that nailed down in my head yet is because I haven't got my hands on a 35 Whelen, and they're not seeming to show up in stock anywhere, so I'm going to have to wait that one out. But rest assured, once I get one, you guys will see it here. But you get this new option of bullets and these new options of calibers. For those of you that are single action revolver guys, you may be aware of Gary Reeder. Gary Reeder is a custom revolver gunsmith. He also does some long gun stuff too, but he primarily does revolvers. And he has a whole catalog of what he calls the GNR cartridges, the Gary Reader cartridges, and they're all Wildcats that are made for something else. Well, you're never going to find a box of that ammunition in the store, but you can make it, and he gives you the manual on how to do it, and it's not horribly difficult to do. So folks, with that being said, you now know some of my reasons for reloading. I want to hear from you. What are your reasons to reload? What's your favorite thing to reload? What got you into reloading? What equipment are you using? I want to hear all about it in the comments. Jump down, start a conversation, and we'll see what all we can figure out. But until next time, this is Chuck with Practical Marksmanship Reloaded.